Well, welcome back everybody. My name's Andrew and you're watching the Kelley's Country Life. So I figured we'd do an update and add-on video here for my homemade ice machine. It's been a very popular video on the channel here lately. It's been blowing up. A lot of people have had a lot of questions. So we're going to answer those questions in this video. We're also going to add something to this to try to increase production. But before we get into any of that, I want to get a good baseline. I've already measured ice production before, but we're going to do it based on a 24-hour period. So this here, if you're new and this is your first video you're catching, this is a 7 cubic foot deep freezer that I purchased, and I put two refrigerator ice makers in here to make a homemade ice machine. I have exactly $369 in this after taxes, and up until this point it makes about 50 pounds a week, but that's something that we're going to measure right here. So as y'all can see, I have mounted two ice makers in here, made my own extension cords for them. I'll include the video at the end of this one of me building and doing this. That way I don't clog this video up. But it's been working great for months. As you can see, it makes your big, normal size ice cubes. My ice tray is empty. This is what I want to show y'all. It'll catch the ice under both ice makers. So we're going to let this run for 24 hours, get a weight measurement on how much ice this is producing in a 24-hour period. Then we're going to add some fans to this. That's been a very popular suggestion, and see if we can increase capacity. So this video is going to take a couple of days to make. All right, so welcome back everybody. It has been a full 24 hours and 10 minutes to be exact, but close enough for this test. I have let the little ice tray bin fill up in there. We're going to weigh it. This gives us a good baseline. The freezer has not been opened one single time in the last 24 hours. Then we're going to rig the fans up temporarily in case they don't work, install them, wait another full 24 hours, and see if ice production increases. So for starters, let's go ahead and weigh the ice, and then we got a few things to talk about because a lot has happened overnight. All right, so this is nice and filled up, but did not overflow. There's a big lip in there, and I can see if any cubes fell off. I do not see any. All right, so just for reference, we are at 5.8 pounds. And that's also including the plastic tray. So that's actually a little lower than I have tested in the past. And just for reference, it's actually 2 days later. I have done this test twice. The last one was 5.68 pounds. This one's 5.8. I just wanted to go over 2 days to make sure I was getting the proper amount, and that seems to be the case. But I think what's going on in here is I have low capacity in the freezer right now. We've been using it a lot, and thermal mass really makes a difference in my mind on how quick we produce. That's something we're going to test coming up. All right, so all I've done is just cut a little cheap piece of aluminum bar here that I got from the local hardware store. And I have, sorry for the messy workbench, I have a viewer, Mr. Doug, who sent me a couple of these cooler guy fans. I think they're using kegerators, but they're basically just large computer fans. Very low wattage pull. He sent me two. So I'm thinking to keep this simple because I have no idea if this is going to work or not. And there has been tons of comments on the channel, people saying that these ice makers work on timers, this will not speed it up, and then there's a ton of people saying these ice makers work on thermostat control and that a fan in there will speed it up. So because we have no idea, I am just going to zip tie a couple fans on this. We can drop it right down in the freezer. I can run the wires out the back, and we can just temporarily test this. And if this works really well, I can always design something later that's better. But I actually kind of like this very simple removable design. So if it's in my way when I'm scooping ice, I can literally just pull this out, set it to the side, scoop my ice, set it right back in the freezer, and I'm done. So let me go wash and clean this up. Since I just cut it, the last thing I want in my ice is a bunch of little aluminum pieces. Now most people say one of these is all you'll need, and that's probably true. But since I have two of them, let's go ahead and put two in here. And there's been a huge, huge discussion on the channel. And what I meant to say earlier that happened overnight, literally my ice maker videos, somehow YouTube started plugging them, and I got 100 and some odd thousand views overnight. Woke up to hundreds upon hundreds of comments this morning. I've been doing my best to respond to all of them, but it'll take me a little while. And there's so many theories on there, it's crazy. So we're just gonna start testing because everybody's got their own idea. And the best way to know is just to get out there and do it. I believe in that. But most people say, probably the most common comment is we need to just, any fan in there will recirculate air. It's a small space. A lot of people say you need to pull cold air up from the ice. A lot of people say that doesn't matter at all. Any kind of air movement in there, it's going to roll down across the ice and come back. But most people tend to agree from the comments I'm reading that I need these pointed toward the ice makers themselves. That way it's blowing that cool air that's recirculating through the ice or the deep freezer back across the ice makers. So since I've seen that as the most common suggestion, that's the way we're going to point them up top, blowing across the ice makers. Okay, yes, I've got a mess going on here, but we're just testing for now. I'll figure out a way to clean all this up later if this works. So as you can see, I've got both the fans mounted on this aluminum plate. They're running. All I am going to do is just run the wires right out the backside under the lip and probably put something heavy there so it seals up as best it can. It doesn't allow any air in. And like I said, if this works, shows promise, I'll figure out how to run the wires through a little cleaner later on. I'm also going to install this pan in there because if ice production does increase as much as people claim, it's going to fill that tray up and fall over. So let me show you what we got going on. And now that I'm letting so much heat in here, I'm probably going to wait an hour before I start my timer. But I have both fans running now. I can feel a ton of air moving. They're blowing across the ice makers. It's going to hit the back wall and it's going to recirculate air in here, no doubt. So let me tuck these cables back here, close this lid, make sure I'm getting a decent enough seal. It actually looks just fine. It's sealing up good around those cords. Should be sucking a lot of air in. All right, so since I left that open for a few seconds, let a lot of warm air in, I'm gonna wait 1 hour, let this cool back down, and then we'll run the test. I forgot to show you all the thermometer in there, but I've got this set to 0 degrees. It'll go down as much as -10. All right, so it's been 24 hours. One thing I did want to point out real quick before we open this up and see the ice production is today, it's not pouring rain, it's not extremely humid, although it is for Florida, and it's not wet on the top. However, the lid still feels a little cool, sides are hot like they're supposed to be, so I still think we can do something with insulation up top. But I wanted to point that out since yesterday, this was sweating really bad, but it was also pouring rain at the time that I checked it. So let's pull the ice out, weigh it. This will be my second 24-hour test with fans. I did 2 24-hour tests without fans. We'll get the average of both. I figure that should give us the best information here. I decided to go ahead and do an extra 2 days of testing here to make sure we're getting as accurate of results as we can. All right, so we definitely made more ice again, no doubt about that. I didn't see any on the shelf today, so it looks like this caught it good. Trying to see if moving it made any difference in weight. It does not. So we've got 7.54 pounds right here. That's including the plastic tray. All right, so I went ahead and zeroed out the weight of just the tray. Let's put the ice in. .54, and we now have 1.64. So if I remember correctly, I'll have to go back and look at the footage. Yesterday I think was around 9.7. Today is 9.18. If you take the 1.1 pound weight, if I remember correctly again, of the tray away, we're up to 8 pounds a day versus the 4 point something that we were making without fans. So it is just about doubled. I'll crunch the numbers and give you a percentage increase. Now, if you've watched my older videos that I did a few months ago, I was getting a couple pounds a day more without fans than I'm getting right now without fans. The only thing I can think that has to do with a couple months ago was early spring, end of winter, a lot cooler. I'm out here in an uninsulated metal shop in Florida. I'm sweating right now, it's hot. That's probably affecting this cooler some. But we can say without a doubt, the fans have dramatically increased my ice production. It just blows my mind how much that has increased it. Now, one thing I can already tell you I have to watch with the fans, if you open and close this a lot, you can cause condensation or sweat to build up on them because they're going to suck hot air right in. I've seen condensation build up on the fan. The issue is when you close this back, that condensation builds up too much and freezes, the fan blades can start hitting a little chunk of ice. I've had that happen once. All I did then was just take them out, wipe them off with a paper towel, stick them right back in there. Now that condensation is gone. So that's one to look out for the fans. They're both still working great, running just fine, even in this 0 degree temperature here. Now let me crunch the numbers. I'll throw those up right now, comparing the before and after results and the percentage increase in ice. All right, so pretty impressive results, right? But I want to take this time to answer some questions, give some suggestions, and talk about my path moving forward here. There has just been hundreds of thousands of views of my ice maker videos over the last few days. So again, this is for entertainment, something I'm doing for myself, but a lot of people are very curious about it. So let me answer some of your questions because there has been some common ones. I'm talking hundreds of the same type of questions, and let you know some tests that are coming up next week and the week after. Things I can do to, I think, make this even more efficient. So I'm going to read off a little list here. A lot of people have asked about, does the ice form chunks in the bottom down here? It absolutely does not. Let me show you. So if you look down in here, I can shove my hand all the way to the bottom. Nothing is hard or clumped up. Now, there is one time I've had that happen. As y'all can see, this is a non-defrosting freezer, which is a good thing. So it builds up frost occasionally. About once a month, I'll come out with a pan like this, stick it underneath, take a clean putty knife, knock the frost off, put it in the sink. The reason I do not scrape the frost into the freezer is because as soon as you touch this, since it's just little ice crystals, it melts almost immediately and makes condensation or water. That is how you get blocks of ice in the bottom if you make condensation or have melting that happens. Because my ice cubes are made in 0 degree atmosphere, dumped out in a 0 degree freezer and stored in a 0 degree freezer, no melting occurs other than the tiny little bit that happens in the ice cube tray to release them. But it's not enough to stick them together. I have no problems after using this for a few months of ice sticking together, other than the one time I scraped all the frost and just let it hit the bottom. Then all the way around the edge, the ice stuck together and I had to bust it out. So let's bring to another question. It probably just triggered some of y'all to see me stick my hand in the ice. I have made this strictly for putting on coolers, putting around drinks in coolers, which we use weekly, as well as packing around fish in ice boxes. I do a ton of fishing and we're boating a lot, so we go through a lot of ice. This is not drinking ice. If it was, I would not be storing my scoop in there. I would not be sticking my hands in there, because no matter what ice machine you have, from a commercial one to a homemade one, you want to be careful about bacteria that's in here. That's been another very popular question on the channel. How do you clean this? What happens? So let me show you this model right here. This model right here has a drain on it that's in the very bottom. Very easy to clean. And by the way, this deep freezer, it's extremely light. I can pick it up when there's no ice in it. So once or twice a year, my goal is going to be to take this. Here's the beauty of this system I built. My ice makers come right out. The fans come right out. I can scoop what ice out I need, chunk it outside, put it in buckets, and then I can actually wash, clean, do whatever I want with this rinse it out and drain it. You really should do that with any ice maker that you have. So I wanted to address the bacteria concerns there. A lot of people are on me about that. We actually make our drinking ice in our freezer refrigerator that's in that room that I showed y'all the other day. So if I was to make drinking ice out of this, I would really watch the contamination, but again, that's with any ice machine. I have been to restaurants or places with commercial ice makers that let you scoop. The scoop's still in there. You see black mold on the walls in some of these places. That lets you know people are not taking care of this. Just because it's 0 degrees doesn't mean bacteria can't form. So a lot of other people have asked about what happens when the freezer gets full. I don't know, I've yet to have that problem. This thing will probably hold a couple 100 pounds of ice. I'm taking 40 pounds a week most weeks, so I'm really just keeping up with the production it could produce. Now it's gonna actually outrun me with these fans. That's awesome to see and hear. I had to take the trip bars off the ice makers. That's a little lever that lifts up as ice builds up in there. So here's the thing, there's so much capacity in here. If you check this once a week, you can easily see it coming. No more than it produces and as much as it holds. And you can manually trip those ice makers off or just unplug them since I put them on an extension cord like this. Very easy to do. I'm not concerned about just filling up, lifting the freezer and just draining or defrosting everywhere. You'd have to really not pay attention to it for quite a while. Now another thought is you could mount the ice makers across the back, do them differently, and still leave the factory trip bars on them. There's all different kinds of designs I could have done there. So I am probably going to be building another one of these in the future, and something I really wanted to point out. So as you can see, I did have to wind up cutting through the plastic. I did not cut down anywhere near the tubes in here. The last thing you would ever want is a propane or Freon leak, depending on what's in this system. So I discovered something after I built this that would require absolutely no cutting at all. Basically, you build a wooden lip that goes around the top right here. You unbolt the hinges, you lift the hinges up, you screw them to that wooden lip, and then you insulate the outside with some of that rigid insulation board. Then you can drill right through the wood to mount your ice makers, to run your tubes, everything, and you do 0 modifications to this factory unit. That is an excellent idea and something a lot of y'all brought up to me, and I discovered it a while back after I built this. And if you'll research something called a kegerator, basically it's a freezer for a kegerator, if I understand correctly. You'll see a lot of people build that lip or that collar up there, raise this factory lid up, like I said, insulate it. Now your lid seals to that new collar that you made. The collar seals to the top of this. 0 cutting, 0 modifications. That is the absolute best way I could think of to modify one of these in the future. No cutting, no getting nowhere near the Freon or propane tubes in there. Again, I think this system uses some sort of butane or propane. That's the way to go. So really glad a lot of y'all brought that up and I've discovered it. That's gonna make an awesome build in the future. All right, so the next and probably most popular question and comment that I got, some rude by the way, shame on y'all, was, hey dummy, did you look at all these tabletop models or little cheap Walmart models that cost less than this or just a little more than this and will produce 30, 40, 50 pounds a day of ice? I absolutely did look at those, but if you get to reading the reviews, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. They also make a tiny cube that's hollow. That's how they freeze and produce ice so quickly. Again, I need a big, solid, long-lasting cube. I'm packing down drink coolers all day long to go out in the Florida sunshine on saltwater, and I'm packing sometimes 60, 80 pounds of ice in my saltwater boat to pack around fish, and I really need ice that lasts. I'm not making a big drinking ice cooler here. Those little small cubes, perfectly fine for drinks. You just have to refill it often because they melt very quickly. Those do me no good. Plus they have 0 storage. The last thing I want to do is set up a little tabletop model that I got to come out here. They can make ice as quick as 6 minutes. So I don't want to have to come out here every half an hour because the little tray that's in it is filled up and dump. That would take forever, and I don't want to have to babysit something all day long. These ice makers run 24/7, whether I'm here or not. I love the beauty and simplicity of this system, and it makes a really big, thick cube that's extremely cold. And I've been using this for a few months, and I can tell you, I'll have ice in my cooler the next day after going boating all day long. The ice really does last. Temperature does make a difference. So a lot of people got on me about the little saddle valves or little piercing valves that comes in the kit. I agree, they can be junk. Nothing I would ever install in the wall of my house, sheetrock, anything like that. I'm in a metal building with a concrete floor. And yes, I did install a piercing valve behind my sink. I do have plans to change that out to a T-fitting and a true cutoff valve. So I thought I'd mention that. That struck a lot of people wrong. I couldn't believe it. But again, I'm not in a wooden built house with sheetrock walls. I felt okay, and I'm out here in this shop every single day. I have yet to see a single leak after several months of install, but I'm still gonna change it. I actually have the parts on the bench over there to change that out and put a little T cutoff valve in there. So another very popular comment and question is, it would be so much easier just to make block ice. Just fill a bucket up, stick it in there, and then chip off ice every so often. Yes, it would, but that's extremely inconvenient too. For the cost of these ice makers, now they're running 24/7 to making a uniform cube, again, that will actually fit in a cooler, fit around drinks, get my drinks nice and cold, pack around fish. I really need a cube, and a crescent-shaped cube makes a huge difference for actually sticking fish in, believe it or not. Chipping off chunks of ice that have big blocks like this, small slivers that melt quickly, or sharp edges that will, I promise you, they will pierce all your aluminum cans and drinks and anything you put into a cooler. I have no desire for that. But block ice does offer something. It makes thermal mass, which is good for the freezer, keeps the temperature nice and uniform in there, and I think it'll really help with energy usage. And it will keep ice and stuff colder in a cooler if used properly. So I'm actually going to be making block ice next week and testing energy usage on this. It's been another very common question. How much energy is this using to make ice? I've got a kilowatt meter that's on the way. We'll do a bunch of testing next week, again making block ice, testing thermal mass, all people's theories on that, and then we're going to let the kilowatt meter run for a while, maybe with fans, without fans, block ice, without block ice, and see what it truly costs for me to make a pound of ice. Some people have thrown some pretty crazy figures out. Oh, it probably costs $3 to make $2 worth of ice. Absolutely not. I can tell you, I've been running this for 3 months now, I think. I have not seen my electric bill change at all. Yes, it's using electricity, but it must be using so little. I haven't personally noticed it at all. Our electric bills stayed perfectly normal, but we're gonna find that out as soon as I get that meter in. So that's some more videos and tests that are coming up. All right, well, hopefully that answered the majority of your questions. I know this video got a bit long, but there's been literally thousands of comments of people that are very interested in the details. So I want to answer those for you. Again, we've got some pretty cool tests coming up next week with the energy usage, block ice, everything I just discussed. Really looking forward to that. I love the nuts and bolts and the details of things, and I want to see if we can make this even more efficient. Although I'll be honest with you, here it is now in the heat of summer for us, and this is producing extremely well with just the fan additions. It's probably going to be right where I need it to be, but if I can make it to where I can fill this up and cut it off, even better. I love having more ice than I need, because what will happen is I'll just use more ice during the week. I'll ice down coolers a little more often. You'll find other places to need it whenever you have excess. Trust me, that's just the way things work in life. Thank y'all so much for the support. Tons of views, hundreds of thousands of views over the last few days. We've picked up thousands of new subscribers. I'm constantly building little projects like this on the channel. There's over 365 videos on the channel right now. Feel free to look around, check those out. I'm always building stuff in the shop. We're building a house right now, and I love saving money. I love tinkering, love building things like this. So that will always be a big part of the channel. Thank y'all for watching.